Hello and welcome to another episode of FPL Variance powered by FantasyPedia. FantasyPedia is the one-stop shop for everything related to FPL, from captaincy and transfer suggestions to daily price changes. FantasyPedia helps FPL managers make optimal decisions for their fantasy Premier League teams. Make sure to follow Fantasypedia on Twitter. And for now, we are here. We are back. I am Zishan, your co-host, and I have with me Rakshit today. How's it going, Rakshit?
It's going all right, Z. As you can see from the start I've made to the season, it's been pretty surreal actually, but I'm sure we'll talk about it more as the conversation goes along.
Definitely, and that's our agenda for today. Rakshit is a part of our team, but we are delighted, and I think most of the community on Twitter is delighted that someone from FPL Twitter is having a stellar start to the season. And as things stand, Rakshit is 795th in the world. So yeah, great start to the season, Rakshit. Uh, what has it been like? I mean, it's a very generic question, right? But how do you feel about it? And how's the journey been so far? Tell us about it.
It's been weird. It's been surreal. So normally I am a manager who is a very slow starter. So by the time I break into, let's say, the top 300, 200K is normally in the second half of the season. So I like to build up slow, and not by design, of course, but generally I get the initial team selections wrong from the game week one. I mean, this time it's been like phenomenal. Everything I've touched has clicked. Obviously, we're going to talk about one major reason why I'm in this position, but it's just been I would probably put it down to getting the game week one selection right, and it has basically set me up well. It has given me a good base basically to build on, and on top of that, getting in Erling Haaland before Harry Kane instead of Harry Kane in game week one has been a big boost, and pretty much putting the captain's armband on him every week. It's basically helped me a lot.
That's great to hear, Rakshit. You spoke about one major factor that has played a key role in your great start. Can you tell us what that major factor is and how it has impacted and helped you get the green arrows week after week?
Yeah, so that major factor is the failed bench boost I had in game week one. Failed because it gave me 6 points. So I got 6 points from a bench boost. So, but the key reason why basically I use my bench boost is because I've not had good luck with this chip over the last few years. So whenever I've used it and planned it for a double game week, I have never managed to get the best out of it. So I just thought this time I'll probably get it out of the way, and this basically enabled me to have a slightly different structure of my team as compared to what was the template in the community. So, for example, I started with three strikers, while majority of the managers started with a 4.5 archer or something like that. Also, so basically that enabled me to get someone like Ivan Toney in from game week one, and as you know, he's been like absolutely phenomenal. Scored a hat trick last week. I think he's one of the top 3 point scorers in the season as of now. And also, so he's been there as my third striker alongside Haaland and Jesus. Also, as you know, the premium defense not really clicked so far. So Cancelo has been off and on. Reece James has been underwhelming. Trent Alexander-Arnold had one huge haul. Otherwise, he's been a bit underwhelming, right? So because of having Tony as my third striker, because of the bench boost, I basically had a defense which was not very heavy on premiums. So that enabled me to hop on someone like Perisic. I've had Trippier, for example, from game week one, and these guys have really done well for me since I've gotten them. So the failed bench boost is, I would say, the main reason why I've made such a great start to the season, to be honest.
That's fascinating to hear. And you know, people plan a lot season after season. There's a lot of planning that goes into bench boosting later in the season, but this is something that has actually helped you. So talk about different strategy altogether compared to what we see on Twitter. And for anyone who fancies to go a bit offbeat, I think Rakshit's team is right up there. You took a different strategy. Uh, Speaking of different strategies, people talk about differentials a lot. And if you look at Twitter, for example, FPL Twitter, 90% teams, they almost look similar, right? We're looking at everyone having the same 5-3-2 or a 4-4-2. What are your thoughts on striking a balance between differentials versus template?
I mean, it's a very obvious thing to say, but probably someone who wins FPL in the end is someone who maintains the perfect balance, right? But maintaining the balance, getting the differentials right, hopping onto those bandwagons before they become the bandwagons is the key to go about it. Now, a team which is uber differential, a template team is template for a reason, right? Because those players are delivering on a weekly basis. So you have to have those players. Do not never one should not shy away from getting players just because everyone else has them, right? In the end, what matters is points. And I want points. I love points. We all love points. So probably that is something which with the strategy I adopt. But I always like to mix it up a bit, whether it be structure, whether it be taking risks on some players who are basically not considered by the community. For example, if you can see my team on the screen, you will see Trossard. I have Trossard in my team, so I got him in place of Pascal Gross. So it's a very small example. Now, obviously, variance and luck plays a huge part in it, but got this 50-50 decision right is one of the main reasons why it has been given a slightly rank boost. But also these things can backfire very easily. So it's about getting the right player at the right time, and luck obviously has a huge part to play in it as well.
Definitely. And I think you've been tapping into variance since the start of the season, and you've
Yeah.
been falling on the right side of variance. So for the viewers, watching this, if you're an old viewer, you're tuning in for the first time. This is not the first time, Rakshit is right up there. He's finished in the top 10K in the past as well. And this looks like, another really strong start, and, it could go anywhere. You're basically in nosebleed territory, and who knows? You can just, go on and win it all.
It can go
Let's
both
let's
ways,
hope
my
so.
friend. It can go both ways.
Uh, Definitely, it could go both ways. But you spoke about how you've had that core of players who are really doing well, but you mix around. You mentioned Pascal Gross, for example, as a reasonable differential. Now his ownership has sort of gone up a bit. Are there any other differentials that you're probably targeting in the next, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so currently, so this fits into the wildcard theory basically. So I am currently who is someone who's not looking to wildcard in 8 or 9. Now, obviously, a lot of things have happened. Templates switch very quickly. Things are happening in football. Tuchel got sacked by Chelsea. Potter might be on his way to Chelsea. I think it's almost done now. By the time this recording goes out, probably he'll be confirmed as well. So Brendan Rodgers might be gone. So Leicester suddenly might become more viable. Aston Villa look to probably be recovering. They have a good fixture run coming up. So identifying differentials from these a few of these teams, Newcastle, West Ham, they have good fixtures coming up. But I would probably not like to lose the core of my team just yet because these players have done so well for me so far. For example, people are looking at Alexander Isak. I get the appeal of Mitrovic as well, right? But someone like Ivan Toney, I have him from game week 1. He's delivered against the best teams. For example, obviously United were a disaster. Obviously, when Brentford paid them, but on paper they're a top 6 team, right? And they have been playing well. But Toney absolutely destroyed them in that match. And he's someone, for example, an example of a player I'm looking to hold on to and probably ignore someone like Isaac in the next 2-3 weeks until I get like proper uh, underlying stats reflect that Tony is regressing or something. Because Brentford do have decent fixtures coming up. So while people might wildcard and look at Mitrovic, someone like Isaac, for example, Jesus, Haaland, etc., I'll probably hang on to someone like Tony in my team. So that's the main reason I'm probably not looking to wildcard in 8 or 9. I just want to give my core group of players, which you mentioned about, a bit more faith. I want to just hang on to them for a bit longer. Trippier, for example, is someone who I really like. But there are obviously other players in my squad probably are problematic areas. For example, someone like Cucurella. Now it's a proper wait and watch now. Now that Tuchel is gone, will he play left centre back? Will he play as a left wing back? Will Chilwell and Cucurella both play in the team? This is something I'll probably have to observe. Brighton have this match which is randomly postponed now as well. So I'd probably have to assess Sanchez's role in my team as well. And Nick Pope is someone who's been doing well, facing a lot of shots, but also has a very high save percentage. Don't mind doubling up on the Newcastle defense. So probably I said a bit too much regarding a lot of players in this segment. But definitely in terms of moving away from the template, 8 and 9 seems to be a good time to do it because a lot of teams have good swings. So I don't mind someone who's wildcarding, but currently for my team, I don't see it as a big reason for me to change the whole setup right now.
That's interesting to hear. And I think what has stood out for you is you've been wise enough, as we've discussed before, to own the core template players. But in terms of strategies, I think you are able to filter the noise in the community. So a lot of people in the community have already decided that they will wildcard in
Yeah,
game week 8, game week 9. But here it's very interesting to hear that you have your own reasons why you don't want to wildcard, and again, really valid reasons, because a lot of noise and a lot of changes that could happen in the meanwhile. You spoke about Newcastle, and it's very interesting to hear. And for our viewers, if you watched the previous Newcastle game, and the average football fan will look at the numbers from that game, and they'll think that, oh, Newcastle allowed 9 shots, because Pope made a lot of saves and he got like a 12-pointer, I think. But what's important to notice, they're allowing those shots, but none of them were big chances. So
yeah,
Pope is a master at that, and Eddie Howe seems to be, he's trying to get the best out of it. So I think it's a very good sign, and I think Pope is a great shout, Rakshit, in terms of switching from Sanchez, or even if someone like Ward, like if you're unfortunately stuck with him, I think
yeah.
that's a great move to make. Yeah, really interesting points. Again, going back to the premium defenders, you spoke about how you did not really start with some of these premium defenders, but I've noticed that you transferred in Cancelo very recently, so he's back in your team now. What is the thought process behind that? Do you like the underlying data that City are putting up? Also, do you feel is it too early to write off big at the back? Which camp are you in?
Yeah, so I just feel because of the advent of the strikers, I want three strikers in my team right now. So I think four defenders is fine in terms of a structure, because I do want three midfielders, at least three midfielders as well. Midfielders will make a comeback when the season goes along. I am expecting someone like Son, for example, to kick in. In terms of big at the back, now obviously these are world class players we're talking about, right? I already have Trent in my team. I started the season only with Trent as the only uber premium defender in my team. I had no Cancelo, I had no Reece James, I had no Robertson, for example. So that enabled me to get someone like Trippier, right? Now, the way to go forward for me is to identify players who are playing like premiums but not priced like premiums. So Trippier is someone who I absolutely adore. Now he's someone who is playing in a very good defense. He's someone who is attempting a lot of crosses. I think even in the last match he had like 15 crosses, 8 successful, 7 unsuccessful, which is absolutely insane. So he's going to get a lot of assists. He's taking direct free kicks like we saw against your club, Man City. He's taking corners. He's taking indirect free kicks. And I think he's just a cheat code at this price. So even someone like Ivan Perisic, for example. Now, I saw a lot of people in the community looking to sell him because he did not start the last match because he has Man City coming up. But he is a player who is absolutely phenomenal. I've been watching him since his Bayern days, his Inter days, for example. Perisic is an absolute beast. He's two-footed. He can play as a wing back. He can play in a left winger position as well, as Antonio Conte has played him in a few matches, especially late on. And he's someone who, at a 5.5 price, playing for an attacking in an attacking position for a team like Spurs, who are gonna keep a lot of clean sheets. He's absolute gold, I feel. So I am not looking to sell someone like Perisic. And when you compare Perisic to someone like Robertson, then I feel it's a proper no-brainer, right? And similarly, Trippier to someone like Robertson, it's a no-brainer for me because these guys are delivering better value at such a lower price. Now, in terms of so I've never liked Robertson as an asset, primarily because I really can't predict his hauls. I've had him for a long time over the past so many years. I've just never seemed to get him at the right time. That's one of the main reasons. Personally, I have personal bias against him. So generally, I avoid him. Cancelo, you mentioned. Now, I fear Cancelo. I really love Cancelo. And one of the things I got lucky with from my start was to not have Cancelo and get away with it. So the time I got Cancelo in my team was before the Nottingham Forest match. Now I had only Haaland in my team and I wanted another City presence. So I was looking at Bernardo Silva, was looking at Gundogan, was looking at Julian Alvarez as well in place of Ivan Toney in my team, ironically. But I decided to go for Cancelo because I just thought it's sure shot 6 points, 7 points for sure in this match. And if City get like 4, 5 goals, which they did, I back him to get at least one goal or assist. And he's also someone I'm very happy to own over the long term because, as you mentioned, City do have the best underlying data. And once the season is over, City will have the best underlying defensive data for sure. They just don't give the ball. And with the Sergio Gomez coming, with Akanji coming, I think the other positions might be a bit of a threat. Even Ruben Diaz's position, Walker already, I would say his position is under threat right now. And especially if Cancelo plays on the right, as we saw against Sevilla also in the Champions League, I think his assist numbers definitely can go up. So Cancelo is someone who I'm very, very happy owning because of his attacking potential, because of City's underlying data. Trent is also someone, at least I am looking to own, irrespective of Liverpool's defensive form. Obviously, they got thrashed 4-1 by Napoli, so that is concerning. But in terms of a premium defense, I feel a couple of them are okay. And mix it up with your Perisic, with your Kieran Trippier, and I think you should have a perfect team in terms of defense.
Yeah, I mean, so many. First of all, with Perisic, right? You spoke about how good he has been. I think he's a world-class player. Let's put it that way. A world-class attacker who's playing as a wing back, and I think he's the kind of defender in FPL who could come up with 2 or 3 goals, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like we've seen this with Alonso in the past. I don't think any of the current wing backs in the Premier League could do that, but I would definitely put my money on Perisic to do that at some point, and the price as well. I've sold him in my team personally. Sold him for Reece James last week, and I kind of regret it already. But yeah, I am thinking of getting him back as soon as possible. Cancelo as well. Again, personally, I was not very keen on Cancelo in the past, but I watched that Sevilla game. He's playing on the right, and it
Yeah,
was scary. It was scary,
yeah,
and we've seen Walker get a lot of chances playing that right back role in recent games. So Walker does not have the attacking instinct. He's a solid defender.
yeah.
Unlike him, Cancelo is someone who has that. He's got that sauce to just come up with something really ridiculous. And I think even I might be looking at a way to bring Cancelo in very soon, and other FPL managers as well listening to this
So
with City's underlying data.
I have a question for
Yeah.
you, Z, considering you're a
Yeah.
City fan. So do you see Cancelo playing as a right back in the upcoming game weeks?
I think he will because in terms of his fitness, Cancelo's right up there. We saw it last season as well. His fitness is elite. He can play every 3 days. Walker, he's had his bit of injury troubles in the past, and the fixture is the schedule is now piling up. Right, every 3 days there's a game. I think the best part about Cancelo is that he's really versatile. So even if he's not playing right back, he will play left back. That's how confident I am about him. So I see a 60-40 ratio, if you want to call it that. I think he'll still play most of his games at left back purely because Walker is first choice on the right. But Walker, at his age, with his fitness issues, I think he will sort of have a lot of games on the bench. And that is where those 30-40% games where Cancelo plays as right back, I think he can cause a lot of damage to non-owners. And he's got someone like Haaland who's really clinical now. So yeah, it's a great recipe for City. If you don't own Cancelo in FPL, then it's a disaster recipe. So I think a lot of people who don't own him should be sort of thinking about a plan to bring him in very soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, that's big at the back. We've spoken about your thoughts on wildcard, your thoughts on differentials as well. Uh, very last, apart from the players that you mentioned, Newcastle defense, are there any other standout options that you want to uh, call out? Someone that you might not be targeting immediately, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks down the line, given that you're still planning to hold your wild card. Any players that stand out to you?
Yeah, I'm looking at definitely looking at United assets now because I think they're priced beautifully. So still unsure about someone like Rashford because obviously he does really well against the top teams. He likes to run in behind the defense. So all those teams who have a high line, he generally gets that space to run in. So for example, the match against Crystal Palace on Sunday is a good metric to judge Rashford on, right? So because I expect Joachim Anderson, etc., to sit very deep and it will be Palace who will be playing on the counter. So I just want to see how Rashford does against Crystal Palace before I really bring him in because he's very popular right now. I think Sancho could be a good shout for this particular match. I think against low blocks, I much prefer Sancho over Rashford. But then again, they have Man City coming up. Then Rashford again might be the better option. So that's the thing with United assets. I think you have to own the right one at the right time. A player who really impressed me in the last match was Christian Eriksen. I think he had his best game since joining United. and it was very interesting to see him making those breakthrough runs on the counter as well. So it was actually Bruno Fernandes who was feeding the balls, and Christian Eriksen, as you saw with the third goal, making those breakthrough runs. So Eriksen is also obviously on free kicks and corners. He's also someone who will start all the matches, and although he might not give you those 12, 13, 15 pointers, I expect him to chuck nicely along with an assist a match or a goal every third match or something. So, and Ericsson is also someone who generally normally does well on bonus as well. So I actually like Ericsson as an option, and I don't see many people talking about him in the community. People are mostly talking about Rashford right now. Bruno Fernandes' problem is he's too overpriced at that price. I'm just not sure he's worth it as of now. But Ericsson is someone who, from a United point of view, is someone I'm looking at. Their defense looks all right now, and Diego Dallo is the standout option. So he's someone at 4.4, 4.5 is again a good option. Newcastle we spoke about. Isaac again, I think he's a good option. I've seen him for Sociedad a lot. He is someone who's going to do well, but it's just about picking the right three strikers for your team because we only have three slots. There's Mitrovic, there's my boy Tony as well. Then you have to ship someone like Jesus if you want to keep them both. Then obviously the Norwegian beast Erling Haaland. Then of course I think you have Harry Kane in your team who's been doing well. Frustratingly for you, people like Mitrovic and Tony are continuing to either match him or even outperform him. Lot of striker options, so that's why it's a wait and watch on Isaac as well. And if I can put my team for next week, then you'll see a guy called Leon Bailey, who I've been owning since game week one. Now suddenly he's become an option for me now. So he's someone who's 4.7 now. He scored in the last match. He's also someone who is, I expect him to start against a Leicester team, which is horrendous right now defensively, conceded five in the last match. Brendan Rodgers is still in his job for some reason. So I expect Bailey to start, and he's just become a piece of gold for me now. In considering I have Cucurella who's playing Fulham and Perisic who was playing Man City, probably bench them both to play someone like Bailey. So Villa assets, for example, a cut price midfielder like Bailey who's playing up front, he again once again becomes an option. So we FPL managers have to be a bit open-minded and not write someone like Bailey off. Maybe give him another chance. So he's probably someone who can do well. Apart from that, there is West Ham. Now, problem with West Ham is I don't know exactly who to own. So Paqueta is someone I have my eyes on because he's been so good for Brazil and Lyon over the past few years. But it's about identifying the talisman of the team. Now, Jared Bowen could be that guy, but he started the season a bit slowly. Chelsea, again, they have a good fixture run coming up. But again, it's about wait and watch. How Chelsea set up against Potter is going to be extremely fascinating. So that is something I'm waiting to observe. So that's I think the main reason why I'm not looking to wildcard in eight, at least in eight, because just want a couple of weeks to assess what's going on. So many things are happening, so many things are changing very, very quickly in FPL. So probably 9, 10, 11, 12, I'm keeping my wildcard options open. But these are the few core teams and few core players I'm looking at in the next 2, 3 game weeks at least.
That's great to hear, and I think some really interesting shouts as well. For example, Ericsson is someone who's not been spoken about a lot, so something for our viewers to think about, and especially coming from someone like you who is doing so well, and
Got
as
extremely
they say,
lucky.
everything you touch this season turns to gold. So hope the trend continues, and yeah, we're looking at your team for next week, Rakshit. Uh, what are your thoughts? Are you planning to make any moves? And does the armband stay on Haaland? The main question.
Yeah, armband stays on Haaland. He's ridiculous right now. If you have some other options, for example, there is Gabriel Jesus right now, who is the other person I'm considering. But I just want to see how Arsenal bounce back from that defeat. Now, mentally, they have been a bit fragile since Wenger left. So I just want to see how they react to a defeat. And Jesus is someone who I expect maybe bag a goal or an assist in this match. But there's only one match in which he truly exploded. And in terms of his ceiling, I think Erling Haaland has shown that he can score against anyone, anytime, anywhere. So that's why he's my captain. Uh, in terms of the other team, I mean the way my team has been structured right now. So I have Cucurella and Perisic on my bench right now. Now Cucurella is someone who did not start in midweek. Now and with Potter perhaps taking over, and interestingly, Cucurella was playing under Potter. last season. So again, it's a fascinating dynamic. I really want to see how Chelsea set up. We don't even know if it's going to be a back three or a back four, for example, in this match or into the future. And the way Mitrovic is playing right now, the way Chelsea are playing right now, I'm not very confident of a Chelsea clean sheet. So Cucurella is benched. Perisic I love, and but it's Man City away. Perhaps the only fixture I'd probably look to bench Perisic in. If obviously if we get information, he is actually starting. Also, Leon Bailey's re-emergence has made my decision slightly easier. So he's starting for me. Trossard I got in last week. He plays a very leaky Bournemouth. Although they are decent at home, so I'm a bit wary of that, especially without Potter. But I still feel I have to back him. There is Sanchez, who probably might be the last week. Sanchez is in my team right now. Probably might look to get in someone like Pope, as we discussed earlier. In terms of the other assets, Tony stays against Southampton. There's Martinelli, who's a great price. He's a great price considering his output. He's there. So then it comes down to the Liverpool assets, Trent and Salah. Now, they were absolutely disastrous. Salah was really bad. Trent was atrocious defensively, but they are playing Wolves at home. And I'm not very confident about that. Problem is, if I remove Trent, who do I get? Similarly, if I remove Salah, who do I get this week? And that seems to be a bit of a problem for me. KDB is an option. Raheem Sterling, is he really an option? Going down to a United asset, am I really sure who's going to do well against Palace, who anyways are okay defensively? So perhaps a lack of an option is the main reason why probably keep someone like Salah in my team. Trent, I still feel is a great asset going forward, with or without clean sheets. But with respect to Salah, we'll have to see how things go along. But as of now, he's in my team. Definitely not giving him the armband this week, though.
That's great, and yeah, I think all eyes will be on you, Rakshit, going forward. Not just this week, but each week going forward. And yeah, we spoke about how you're in the nosebleed territory, and let's hope it stays that way for the rest of the season. And yeah, onwards and upwards from here. Speaking of that, we've looked at your team. Know that you're sticking with Haaland, but the community has some questions for you, and we'll look at some of those questions. And let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
We've got Nighthawk FPL, aka Karan, and firstly, congratulates you on your phenomenal start. And this is a wildcard question, something that we've spoken about earlier, but I'll just ask you that question anyway. When do you plan to wildcard? And do you see yourself owning Salah and Jesus if you're wildcarding pre-game week 9?
So not planning to wildcard in 8 for sure. Uh,
Yeah.
9 is still open. I'll take it on a week-to-week basis from now on in. Salah, I will be surprised if he is in my wildcard team. If I do not wildcard, probably end up owning him. I was probably wondering what impact Thiago will make in terms of get Liverpool ticking, but something is just not right now, and probably it may be the right time to go hop off Salah after the Wolves match. Like I won't have a problem if anyone decides to go off Salah. I have him in my team right now because I don't see a alternative right now. For example, people are someone like you who has Kane in the team. Again, but we spoke about the great budget forwards who are basically performing as well as Kane. So I don't see it as an emergency to get in Kane in my team and downgrade Salah. So probably if I was wildcarding in 9, probably would get rid of Salah. But it's a wait and watch for me as far as his replacement is concerned. In terms of Jesus, again, this Everton match I think will give me a lot of hints with respect to Arsenal. Martinelli is someone I'm looking to keep for sure because of his immense value. But Jesus is someone, once again, it's one to monitor. Don't mind shipping him out because he doesn't seem to be hitting double figures too many times this season so far, with Arsenal having great fixtures. With slightly trickier fixtures coming up, with him not having a very high ceiling, again, this is something I'm open to. I'm open to definitely selling Jesus as well if I indeed wildcard, especially if it is to get someone like Mitrovic in ahead of Nottingham Forest or something. So again, Salah and Jesus seem to be the two players who I might hop off in the coming weeks, but I see no urgency in doing that at the moment. They've been doing okay, but not too great. Again, I think game week 9 probably might be a good time to jump off these two.
That's great to hear. We'll take the next one. So we have got FPL underscore Tony, who does not have a question, but he said that he wants to congratulate you, and he's looking forward to your thoughts. So I think as soon as this goes out, FPL underscore Tony will be one of those guys who will be tuning in right away. Thank you so much, Tony. We'll move on to the next question. We've got Naples King, who again congratulates you on your great start, Rakshit. He says that he's a rookie when it comes to FPL, and he wants to know whether we should plan our chips this season based on the World Cup in mind. So it's a World Cup year. Do you think what sort of change do we need to keep in mind in terms of approaching our chips this year?
Okay, so in terms of bench boost, clearly I don't rate this chip too much because I already burned it in game week one. I really feel the problem has been over the past few seasons that I normally decide to bench boost in a particular game week. So my transfers leading up to that game week normally are catered towards a perfect bench boost, which does not normally work out. So I end up making transfers. Let's say there is a bench boost in 36, for example. I want to use my bench boost for, and I have information in 32. So my transfers in 33, 34, 35 will be catering towards that bench boost. And that generally has not worked out for me because I missed out on hauls, I missed out on good fixtures, players who have do not have a good match or do not have a double game week in 36 who have good fixtures. So setting up for the bench boost is one of the main reasons why I decide to get rid of it early on. Anyways, I feel it's an overrated chip. You normally, if someone gets over 10 points, genuinely should be happy from a bench boost as well. So if let's say there is a week you get before the World Cup and you have a good bench, you have a playing keeper, you have two bench options who have a really good fixture, and the third option has an okay fixture and probably plays that week, I won't mind hesitating using the bench boost. Although I mean the word optimal comes to mind. Optimal use is obviously in a double game week later in the season. But when you talk about triple captain, when you talk about free hit, for example, I'd probably use it in doubles and blanks, and that is obviously going to happen after the World Cup, unless Brighton and Palace is adjusted early. But probably won't like to waste my triple captain on a Crystal Palace or a Brighton player. So I think
Right.
time to use the chips probably might be after the World Cup. So probably for the horses.
All right. So I think the takeaway is that in terms of the bench boost, you can be flexible if you see an opportunity. It's okay if you're very comfortable using it, but when it comes to the triple captain, you want to save it for a big double game week where
Yeah.
you get someone like a Salah or a Haaland with two plum fixtures. That's great. We'll take another couple of questions. So we've got FPL Noob, who has a wildcard dilemma related question. Again, we've discussed wildcard in detail, but he's got a very specific question about going KDB over Salah as a second premium. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a viable option? Let's say if you've got someone like Haaland up front, maybe a City attacking double up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm all for it right now because Salah is clearly not playing well at the moment. Although, I mean, if he did put away those chances against Bournemouth, if his shot trickled in off the post against Everton, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But in terms of purely the eye test, it's just not working out. De Bruyne is someone who will nicely tick along. He will have those explosive weeks once in a while, like Wolves last season, where I did not own him and it pretty much ended my season. But De Bruyne's hauls as well are sometimes become a little unpredictable. You being a City fan probably know that he generally hauls in the bigger matches. He's a big match player, proper big match player. So, for example, Tottenham coming up, if he gets a double-digit return, I will not be surprised, right? This sort of a match, De Bruyne generally does really well. But considering the way City are playing right now, and if you have Haaland, have Cancelo, I really don't mind if you own a De Bruyne as well, especially because the premium defenders aren't doing well, the cheap forwards are doing well. So I think budget is not a problem. There is obviously Son is not an option right now, Sterling is not an option right now. So I don't mind if you spend your budget getting De Bruyne in your team in place of Salah, especially because I mean, if De Bruyne and Haaland are starting, and if you are captaining Haaland and backing Haaland to do well, then there is a very good chance De Bruyne also does well indirectly. And we all know he's a bonus magnet as well. So I'm all for this move, definitely.
That's great. Next, we have got FPL cheat code. Again, it's another Salah related question. So everyone's talking about Salah.
Of course.
Something that we've discussed already, but he wants to know your thoughts on Kane over Salah. I think you covered this. You said that Kane is probably a good option, but it's purely down to the fact that strikers like Tony and Mitrovic are really offering great value. So that is part one of his question. He also wants to know if you have any future template breakers in mind.
Yeah, so regarding the Kane thing, as you mentioned, don't mind getting him in for the Leicester match. For example, if you're dead ending and you want a wild card, so a couple of moves, you can move from a Salah to a, let's say, a cheap midfielder, maybe a United asset, and maybe upgrade your third striker to a Kane and probably captain Kane. Kane loves playing against Leicester City, and Leicester are definitely a defense you can target right now. So over the long term, as I mentioned earlier, you have these cheap forwards who are doing so well right now. So Kane is obviously doing well, you have him. But just that Tony, Mitrovic, maybe someone like Isaac, maybe can match him over the coming weeks. Although I'm totally open to getting Kane whenever I wildcard because he's someone who I really like and he's someone who probably would want to be in a good rhythm as well, goal scoring rhythm before the World Cup, right? So he's someone who is obviously an option. In terms of the second, I think we mentioned a few differentials, which I'm looking to get in. Uh, a differential in itself is a Newcastle defense double up. Most people will either own a Pope or a Trippier. So a double up is normally frowned upon, especially Newcastle defense. But given the value, given the fixtures, it might be the way to go. Ericsson is someone who I mentioned. Leon Bailey could become a good differential as well. So these are the few players probably next 2 or 3 weeks I'm looking to target.
That's great. One last question before we wrap this. Kunal, FPL underscore early riser, wants to know what is your primary front three for the next 4 or 5 game weeks. So the front three that you've got right now, are you going to stick with it, or 4 or 5 weeks down the line, are you planning to switch to some other forwards?
Yeah, I see a lot of activity happening in my forward line. Haaland obviously stays. Uh, as of now, Tony stays as well. Unless I see a dramatic fall in his underlying numbers, I think he will be probably in my team. What I'm looking to do, maybe perhaps controversially, is Jesus to Mitrovic very very soon. But again, because of the reasons I mentioned regarding his ceiling, etc., and with Arsenal's tough fixtures coming up. Problem is with Jesus is that he's someone who is not going to play in the Europa League. So I think unlike the UCL teams, Arsenal, the main assets will continue playing in the Premier League. Arteta will pretty much continue playing the same team as he's doing. The fixtures are going to obviously toughen up a bit for Arsenal, and that's one slight area of concern. Problem is that I'm not going to captain Jesus probably in the next few weeks. So don't mind someone like Mitrovic replacing him, but this is something I have to think upon.
That's pretty much it. I think uh, lovely to hear your thoughts, and I think the community. Uh, we've covered most of the community questions as well. And any last thoughts before we wrap this up? Any tips that you want to share with our viewers before we wrap this?
I mean, the only I'm not someone who's going to give tips because it's not like I'm an elite manager or something. I'm just talking about how my experience so far this season and what's worked for me, really. So the only tip probably I can say is play your own game. That's about it. Play your own game, guys. Don't be blown away by the Twitter bubble. That really, the hive mind is something we need to get away from. That's about it.
Big fan of that
Yeah,
tip, Rakshit, and it
yeah,
was amazing chatting with you, deep diving into your strategy so far. Lovely to know your thoughts, what differentials that you're targeting, and I'm sure the community also will appreciate your thoughts, your tips, and we will be cheering you on in the future as well. It was a great conversation, and until next time, and yeah, again, like I said, we'll be following your team very closely, Rakshit. So
most welcome.
no
No
pressure at all.
pressure, no pressure. Great chatting with you, Z. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Until next time, take care. And before we go, for our viewers, do not forget to subscribe to our channel if you have not already, and hit the bell icon. We'll be back with more content very soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Cheers, guys.